The 1980s fundamentally reshaped our world. From Reagan and Thatcher's conservative revolution to the fall of communism in Eastern Europe, politics underwent dramatic transformation. The decade introduced personal computers and early internet, while MTV changed how we consumed culture. Despite prosperity for some, others faced recession, AIDS, and environmental disasters. Cold War tensions peaked before an unexpected thaw, and the Berlin Wall fell as the decade closed. This brief journey through the 1980s explores a decade whose technological innovations, cultural touchstones, and political realignments continue to influence our lives today. The year began with international crisis as the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in December 1979, prompting President Jimmy Carter to announce a U.S. boycott of the Moscow Olympics. The Iran hostage crisis continued to dominate headlines, with 52 American diplomats and citizens held captive in Tehran. Against this backdrop, Republican Ronald Reagan decisively defeated Carter in the November presidential election, ushering in a new era of conservatism in American politics. In entertainment, CNN launched as the first 24-hour news channel, forever changing media consumption. The assassination of John Lennon outside his New York apartment in December shocked the world, marking a tragic end to an iconic musical career. Ronald Reagan's inauguration coincided with the release of the American hostages in Iran after 444 days in captivity. Just months later, Reagan survived an assassination attempt by John Hinckley Jr., famously quipping to surgeons, "I hope you're all Republicans." The royal wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer captivated global audiences, with an estimated 750 million people watching the ceremony. Meanwhile, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported the first cases of what would later be identified as AIDS, initially termed gay-related immune deficiency, marking the beginning of a devastating epidemic. In technology, IBM introduced its first personal computer, setting the stage for the computing revolution that would define the decade. A severe recession gripped much of the Western world, with U.S. unemployment reaching its highest level since the Great Depression. Reagan's economic policies, dubbed Reaganomics, faced their first major test. The Falklands War erupted when Argentina invaded the British-controlled Falkland Islands, leading to a decisive British military victory that bolstered Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's political standing. In Poland, the government imposed martial law to crush the growing solidarity movement. In pop culture, Michael Jackson released Thriller, which would become the best-selling album of all time, while Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial broke box office records. Cold War tensions reached alarming heights, with President Reagan referring to the Soviet Union as an evil empire and announcing the Strategic Defense Initiative, nicknamed Star Wars. A South Korean passenger jet was shot down by Soviet fighters after straying into prohibited airspace, killing all 269 people aboard. The United States invaded Grenada in October, citing concerns about Cuban military presence on the Caribbean island. In technology, the Internet took a crucial step forward with the standardization of TCP/IP protocols, while compact discs were commercially introduced to the U.S. market. A television movie, The Day After, depicted the aftermath of nuclear war and was viewed by over 100 million Americans, reflecting widespread nuclear anxiety. The Summer Olympics in Los Angeles were boycotted by the Soviet Union and its allies in retaliation for the U.S. boycott of 1980. Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was assassinated by her Sikh bodyguards, triggering anti-Sikh riots that killed thousands. The world witnessed horror in Bhopal, India, when a gas leak at a Union Carbide pesticide plant killed more than 3,800 people in history's worst industrial disaster. In Ethiopia, devastating famine prompted the star-studded Band-Aid charity single, "Do They Know It's Christmas?" and the subsequent Live Aid concert the following year. George Orwell's dystopian novel, 1984, received renewed attention as readers compared its fictional surveillance state to contemporary politics. Mikhail Gorbachev became the leader of the Soviet Union, introducing policies of glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring, that would ultimately lead to the end of the Cold War. The first summit between Gorbachev and Reagan signaled a potential thaw in superpower relations. The discovery of the hole in the ozone layer alarmed scientists worldwide, while the sinking of the Rainbow Warrior in New Zealand harbor by French intelligence agents created an international incident. Live Aid concerts in London and Philadelphia raised millions for famine relief in Ethiopia. In popular culture, the Nintendo Entertainment System was released in North America, revolutionizing the home video game industry. Two devastating disasters defined 1986. In January, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded shortly after takeoff, killing all 7 crew members, including teacher Krista McAuliffe. The accident was broadcast live on television and witnessed by millions of school children. In April, the nuclear reactor at Chernobyl in Ukraine, then part of the Soviet Union, suffered a catastrophic meltdown, releasing radioactive material across Europe in the worst nuclear disaster in history. The Soviet government's initial attempts to cover up the accident highlighted the limitations of glasnost. The Iran-Contra affair erupted when it was revealed that the Reagan administration had secretly sold arms to Iran and used the proceeds to fund Nicaraguan rebels in violation of congressional restrictions. Black Monday, on October 19th, saw stock markets around the world crash, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average falling 22% in a single day. The crash highlighted the interconnectedness of global markets in the new financial era. Reagan and Gorbachev signed the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, eliminating an entire class of nuclear weapons for the first time. In a famous speech at the Berlin Wall,
"Tear down this wall."
Reagan challenged Gorbachev to tear down this wall. The world population reached 5 billion people, while The Simpsons made its debut as a short on The Tracy Ullman Show, beginning its path to becoming the longest-running American animated program. The devastating 8-year Iran-Iraq War finally ended, having claimed approximately 1 million lives. Meanwhile, a terrorist bombing brought down Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, killing all 259 people aboard and 11 on the ground. George H.W. Bush was elected U.S. president, promising to continue Reagan's policies. In environmental news, the discovery of medical waste washing up on U.S. beaches heightened concerns about pollution, while climate change entered mainstream discourse when NASA scientist James Hansen testified to Congress about global warming. The first major computer virus, the Morris worm, spread through the early Internet, crashing thousands of computers and highlighting new vulnerabilities in the digital age. The most dramatic year of the decade saw the rapid collapse of communist regimes across Eastern Europe. Mass demonstrations in East Germany led to the fall of the Berlin Wall in November, allowing free passage between East and West Berlin for the first time in 28 years. The Tiananmen Square protests in China ended in a violent crackdown, with the iconic image of a lone protester standing before a column of tanks becoming a symbol of resistance. In Poland, Solidarity won landslide election victories, while the Velvet Revolution in Czechoslovakia brought playwright Václav Havel to power. The Exxon Valdez oil spill in Alaska released 11 million gallons of crude oil, devastating the local ecosystem and prompting new environmental regulations. Tim Berners-Lee proposed what would become the World Wide Web, laying groundwork for the information revolution of the 1990s. As the 1980s gave way to the 1990s, few could have anticipated how profoundly this decade would shape the future. The fall of communism redrew the world map, while the technological seeds planted during these years would blossom into the digital revolution. The economic policies, cultural movements, and social changes of the 1980s continue to echo in our politics, entertainment, and daily lives decades later. The contradictions of the era, unprecedented prosperity alongside growing inequality, technological optimism alongside nuclear fear, individualism alongside global awareness, remain unresolved tensions in our own time. Perhaps this is why the 1980s continue to fascinate us. In understanding this consequential decade, we gain insight into the origins of our present world and glimpse the possibilities for our future.